One of my new favorite things is using a whole chicken and cutting it up and processing it and using the different parts for different recipes and then being able to make chicken stock with it. So I'm going to show you how to process this whole chicken, how to cut it up, two different recipes you can use, and also how to make chicken stock. All right, we have the chicken right here. And the first thing that I've noticed when cutting up a chicken, I like to cut it into the leg parts. So we have the drumsticks or the legs, and then the thighs, the wings, and the chicken breast. What I've noticed is when you cut it up, God made this in such a way that if you just sort of look at the anatomy of it and start cutting along what would seem to be the most natural places to cut, it becomes really obvious and you don't have to really guess at it. So you see there's just a line right here to cut along, and I just pull it back. I oftentimes will start with the leg and the thigh. And at some point you can just sort of pull it out of its joint, and makes it real obvious where to make your cuts. So then you flip to the other side. So then you have your two, that's the leg and the thigh, and you can cut these up further. And again, if you look at this joint, this is the equivalent to the human knee. You're just going to cut from behind into the leg and kind of the back side of the knee. Find where the knee connects, and then just cut right in the middle of that joint. So then you have your thigh, you have your leg. Okay, now we've come to the wing of the bird, and again you're just going to look where the joint is, kind of feel around if you need to, and just start cutting. This is going to be the breast on this side, so we're flipping it over and cut along to try and find where the shoulder would go into the blade. And then just cut around until you get the wing off. The very outer edge of the wing, I just cut that off through the joint. That you can throw away. And these are the two parts to the chicken wing. Like if you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, you get chicken wings. This is what you're getting. There's the radius and ulna, the forearm of the bird. Then there's the upper arm. And just cut on through, and then you've got your chicken wings. So the next part we're going to do is the chicken breast, which is for many people their favorite part to the chicken. And it's called the keel that runs, it's like the breastbone of our anatomy, the equivalent, that runs right along that line there. What we're going to want to do is try and cut just to the right and just to the left. Take our knife or our scissors and insert it in, and then just tear right along the side. And it's always kind of tricky to get the right spot. So we'll give it a shot here. Sometimes I get part of the rib cage in there. If you do it right, it ends up being a fillet. And sometimes you can actually put your finger in there and just kind of see if you're going along where you want. You want to try and get it right along the keel to get the maximum amount of meat. And then you can sometimes just rip your finger along and then open that up. So and then this is gonna, when you cut it right, the whole breast falls down like this, And I just try, the goal is to try and get as much meat. And again, if you can look right there, you can kind of see where the meat ends along the keel. And if you look on the other side, we're trying to get all that meat. I don't know if you can see it, but if I'm pinching my fingers right there, I can just cut right along that line there. Uh-oh, I think I got a little bit of bone in the breast, but that's okay. So just trying to cut, I don't know if I'm being accurate on the terms, but cut off the chicken breast from the whole rib cage body cavity right along the edge. And then that's the chicken breast. Now you can kind of feel around and see if you've got any bones. I think I might have a small bone right there. And what I always do with the chicken breast then is I like to take the skin off and with your scissors. And what you always end up with is each side of the chicken breast, there'll end up being two kind of lobes. And you could maybe call that a third one. If you wanted to cut that off, you could. I usually end up leaving it in two parts, the large and the small. One more thing on the chicken breast. Our favorite thing to do with this is to make barbecued chicken, and especially on the grill, it's really yummy. And I'll put a recipe for, call it Dad's Own Barbecue Sauce. I got the recipe from a book. And if you just leave this out for 30 minutes, marinate it in the barbecue sauce for even only 30 minutes while the coals are getting ready, it tastes delicious. Just make sure you fork it a bunch, and that helps the juices, I feel like, get into the chicken breast, and it ends up tasting super duper yummy. So we're ready now to make the baked chicken legs using this spice rub that I found online. It's absolutely delicious. There's paprika, there's brown sugar, thyme, salt and pepper, and oregano. Is there oregano in there? I think it's oregano. I just forgot for a moment. But it's the paprika that gives it, and probably the sugar and the salt. Oregano and thyme. Okay. That gives it a lot of the flavor. And I put this on liberally. The recipe I have, I think, is good for about 3 rounds approximately, 3 or 4 rounds of chicken legs. So again, I sprinkle it on very liberally. It's much better that way. You can take the skin off if you want to. I keep it on because I just like the flavor of it that way, and my kids don't like this much spice rub on it, so then it's easy just to take off the skin with the spice rub. I still think it helps to put it on there because it seems like the flavors really infuse into all these wings and legs, even if you remove it later on. So then I flip it over after I do that, and again, liberally sprinkle it on there. And then bake in the oven until it gets to be 160 degrees. At 425, I think that usually takes around 20 minutes. Okay, our chickens come out of the oven. As you can see, we've got a reading over 160. And one thing I've always noticed is by the time it reaches 160, see if we can see this, usually there's some juices flowing in on the bottom of the pan. And I forgot to mention this before, but I always line the cooking pan with tin foil, and that makes cleanup super easy. Sometimes I don't even need to wash the pan afterwards, and it also just tends not to stick to the bottom. So as you can see, it's just got a nice look to it, and this is just so delicious. So now we're going to make chicken stock with the carcass, and you can either roast the carcass in the oven, and that gives it a more richer flavor, a darker roasted kind of flavor, or you can just throw it in there raw, not mess with that extra work, and then you're just boiling it, so you're gonna cook off. It's gonna get cooked one way or another. It's just a matter of if you cook it in the water or you cook it first in the oven. After you're done having your chicken legs, you can add in the chicken thighs and all the big chicken bones, and that can help. Certainly help out, add more nutrients. A lot of people like to throw in the neck. And you also want to fill this with water all the way to the top, and then add about a half a lemon and let this sit for approximately an hour before you turn it on, and that releases all the nutrients from the chicken bird. So you just add this half a lemon. Then let this sit for about an hour before you turn it on. And when you cook it, you're going to want to cook it on low for about 24 hours. And you can add these in at any time. Just onions. We don't have any celery, but you can add celery as well. And then also carrots.